Call.
Jizzle, Neal,
Here.
Olson,
Here.
Luce,
Here.
Zittergruen,
Here.
Hadley,
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the council or anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the June 1, 2023 special meeting, June 17, 2023 special meeting, and June 19, 2023 regular meeting. B, claims. C, new and amended Class C retail alcohol license, Nordic Fest. D, renewal special Class C retail alcohol license, Coriana. E, renewal Class C alcohol license, Lorana. F, pay application number 1 for Decorah 2023 Steyr Bridge Repair Project. G, Decorah Chamber of Commerce Ridiculous Day Sidewalk Sale. H, Kate Rattenberg Scott, Decorah's Ridiculous Days. I, tax abatement 1103 Skyline Drive, new construction, Radishak Vogel. J, ordering sidewalk improvement for 12 Railroad Avenue, 103 Vernon Street, 208 West Pearl Street, 700 West Broadway Street, 310 College Drive, 101 Grove Street, and 105 Grove Street.
Hadley will
Move
make
the
a motion
consent.
to approve as presented with a caveat about Ridiculous Days getting the insurance.
How do we know which
Uh,
particular is which application?
That
Why
they
don't-
both did have them show up. They both did get submitted.
Yeah.
Okay,
so-
Hadley made the motion, so I'm waiting.
So Ross, could you clarify, your motion is contingent on successfully acquiring the liability waiver? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, insurance,
And
because she
Travis, you're saying
indicated
that
it
that's been
wasn't
done.
on file, yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
they
it's
did
been
get
done.
received
So it's
Friday.
been done now, Ross. So I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, motion made by Hadley, seconded by Zittergruen.
Which application?
Discussion.
Guess anything on it or what's the
Um, okay, just hold it just a
Okay.
minute. We're figuring this out. And that should have been before we had the motion, correct?
It's fine, but both applications have the required liability insurance certificate.
Right, but one application wants the street closed and the other one doesn't, correct?
Correct.
So if we approve both of them, what does that mean?
They both get their way.
Which
If
means
One
that,
would close the street and the other one has the parking stalls that would get their closure. It doesn't prohibit.
doesn't prohibit
or
one
the
or the
other.
other.
Okay,
They're not up against each other.
so we would close the street from Water to Court.
Correct.
That's
And
correct.
then the other one is for 2 parking stalls in front of Sheer Wonder.
Okay,
Okay, so I had a motion by Hadley, seconded by Zittergruen. We've had discussions.
I had one other question. This was in reference to the sidewalk thing. I have no problem with the 5 or 6 that we put on the consent agenda, but does Jeremy have any status report on where we are with 707 Washington and 121 West Water?
Mhm.
The one we had last year for,
Yeah,
be fixed?
there,
or where?
yeah, we've got an update on that if you're okay, we can have Jeremy provide it during the department head update. Or do you?
Perfect. No, that's fine.
Okay, roll call.
Hadley,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Jizzle.
Aye.
Neal,
aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider ordinance amending section 17.16.190 of the Decorah Municipal Code regarding home occupations, and this is the second reading.
Have we had any comments?
I have received one, and so it is listed on the agenda as second reading or first reading if altered. So I did have one resident come to my office and talk about they sell antiques out of their garage on certain weekends throughout the summer tourist season. And for their uses, they do want to fall under a garage sale, because if it is a commercial venture that they're running out of the house, It could still fall under this home occupation, but 12 days is the limitation. So if we want to provide so that those types of operations can continue to exist, changing that 12 days to, for example, 30 was a number that this individual had talked to me. 30 days would have been sufficient because that's, 10 weekends of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, essentially. Again, this is meant to be an enforcement mechanism that if I start running a store, some kind of retail store out of my garage, my detached garage, this is meant to be an enforcement mechanism that I'm not running a true commercial enterprise in a residential neighborhood and calling it a garage sale. But to be in compliance with the full extent of the code, some of those businesses like that refurbish or even just sell antiques outright that live at the property as well, we should extend this beyond 12. Otherwise, they'd be limited to 12.
Do you see any strong potential downsides to adjusting to 30? I mean, as far as staff's perspective?
I don't really, because between 12 and 30, I mean, it's going to take a while for something that's running as a store to catch on our radar anyway. And by then I'd put money on it that they've already been doing it for at least 30 days. And we can enforce that after 30 days is reached.
This seems
Would-
like a reasonable, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, with this, if we add the 30 days, there have been instances where someone essentially has an ongoing yard sale for more than 12 days. Would they then be allowed to do that?
They would. Yep. It would
Um,
be 30 would be their limit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there have been complaints about essentially they say they're having a yard sale, but they just have a bunch of stuff in the front yard.
I can appreciate that there might be occasional nuisance issues that arise like that, but I think
Yeah.
this seems like a decent way to allow some flexibility in our code for, people who want to run a tiny refurbishment business out of their garage. That's a good way to allow people to leverage their land flexibly. So I'm in favor of the change to 30 days.
30 days isn't that long that, like you said, somebody can't run a permanent business out of their house, doing it just 30 days. So I don't have a problem with that either.
So, Mayor, I'd like to move that we would this be an amendment, John? So, and it would re-trigger a first reading. So I would like to move to move the to move the item, but with the amendment that we change 12 to 30.
Can we add to it that it would be within a enclosed structure? Right? So that would prevent the person from having all the things on their yard, but not prevent someone from having it within their garage.
Ron?
Well, right now, the way it's written in the proposed ordinance, it says a rummage garage sale is a sale of household goods and belongings held either outdoors or in a garage. So that would have to be amended as well, which if that's what the council wants to do, now would be the time to do it.
As
I'm
I said,
trying to remember.
go ahead.
I was just, the state code change
No impact.
with the no impact business. I'm trying to remember garage. I know if it's garage fenced in the residence itself, there's really very little prohibition there.
So it does say that,
Yard.
it does say in 5.4, the home occupation shall not be visible from any public way. So I feel like that would cover Emily's concern. 5.4 says can't be visible from any public way. So does that address Emily's concern?
So as long as you're not wanting to extend beyond what's fenced in or in the garage or in the home, I think that's fine.
Okay, so if someone did have I only know that we had this issue in 2019 and it was really a difficult one. Someone essentially, like I said, they had an enormous amount of home furnishings on their front lawn, right? But said that they were having a yard sale that was questionable. So my question is, if it can't be visible, then that would prevent someone from having essentially an entire house worth of furniture on their front lawn for 30 days.
Correct. And
Okay.
even if they did that, our next enforcement mechanism is just nuisance abatement.
Okay, as long as that situation wouldn't become a regular problem, that's fine with me.
I'll second Steve's motion.
Motion made by Steve Zedergruen, seconded by Kristen Olson, and this would be moving from, with the amendment of going from 12 to 30, which would revert it to the first reading. Correct. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jizzle.
Motion carried. Consider ordinance amending sections 17.16.030 and 17.68030 of the Decorah Municipal Code regarding accessory buildings and permitted accessory uses. Second reading.
I have not had any feedback on this one. I did have, somebody, I guess wouldn't say it was like it was more a personal acquaintance that had asked, hey, if I buy a house under this change, can I rent out both? So I had to explain to them that in the ordinance, as it's drafted, no, you cannot buy an investment property and rent out the principal building and then create an ADU and rent that out as well. So I wouldn't count it as comment on the ordinance itself, just me explaining further. I want to make sure everyone here understands that's in this ordinance.
Lucid move the second reading.
Second.
Motion made by Luce, seconded by Neal to move the second reading. Any discussion?
Just that I think there's a lot more work in this vein to be done. So I hope that you all aren't tired of me talking about how we can continue to make housing more legal and buildable in our city.
Okay, roll call.
Luce,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jizzle.
Consider reconsideration of the preliminary plat Kratz subdivision. Can you get background on this item, please?
Yes, so per council rules of procedure, an item can be reconsidered by the council, either the meeting after an item is defeated or 2 meetings thereafter. Otherwise, it needs to wait until a new election cycle or year. So with this item, the Kratz subdivision, we need a motion made by either Zittergruen or Luce, because while it was a 3-2 vote and they were the lower vote number, they were the prevailing side. So either one of those two would have to make the motion, but a second could be made by any member of the council. And then an affirmative vote of 4 people would then activate item 8. If 4 votes are not gained, then item 8 cannot be considered.
Gotcha. I appreciate having this on the agenda. I went back and I should advertise this. I don't advertise it enough. You can go on YouTube and listen to the city council. So I went back to listen further to Dade Kern's presentation and the discussion. And with the number of people that we had here the last time for the vote, I appreciate that this is back on the agenda.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to move that we consider reconsideration of the preliminary plat Kratz subdivision.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Zittergruen, seconded by Johnson. Discussion.
Just to say that I haven't changed my underlying sentiment on this, but I don't think it's great for the voters of Decorah when 2 council members outweigh 3 council members when 2 other representatives are absent. So I think I think the voters deserve to have all their elected leaders heard.
I
Thank you.
agree.
Thank you, Steve.
Any other further discussion? Roll call for number 7, reconsideration.
Zittergren.
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Luce,
No.
Hadley,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Thank you very much for bringing this back. So number 8 is consider preliminary plat, Kratz subdivision. You have any, additional information you want to put on?
Nothing really new. It's the same subdivision. But again, P and Z has reviewed this. There were originally 9 items noted in the engineer's letter. Items 5 through 9 were removed because they are notations unless what staff viewed as deviations from our ordinance where it was not in compliance with the ordinance. So again, those items are number 1, streets do not match city requirements. However, they indicate as private. Those areas they don't meet. Cul-de-sacs are limited to 600 feet, shown as over 1,000. Curb and gutter required. No street lights are shown and no street signs are shown. Item 2, sidewalks are shown but noted to be installed if annexed into the city limits. 3, lots are to be on their own well and septic, not connected to public utilities. In item 4, stormwater management plan was not submitted. However, stormwater easements are indicated on the plat. I do want to note that as we discussed, this is being reviewed by the city because this is within 2-mile radius of the city limits. And this is allowed under state code, but state code chapter 354, which is subdivisions. That is not the same as the zoning section of state code. That's why this is in front of council today.
Just one question. Did it go before planning and zoning once or twice?
This version once, there was a previous, if you remember,
I got it. I
that's
understand.
so this one has been through P and Z once,
And they came back,
They
because they
came
made
back-
some adjustments from the first one, correct?
correct? They came back with a recommendation of approval contingent upon item 4, which is a stormwater management plan be implemented. And then items 1B, which was curb and gutter, 1C streetlights, 1D street signs, and 2 sidewalks, that those be requirements once annexed into the city limits.
Can we require them? So with sidewalks, like, I mean, we've just seen it with Bruning and other additions. Can we require them to make sure that the driveways are at the grade and that the driveway length, it has a sidewalk in it so that if ever annexed, then between houses, there would be a easy transition to build sidewalks as opposed to having to redo everyone's driveway? Is that possible?
So we have an enforcement mechanism on that through building permitting, where when the home's being constructed, we require the driveway to at least have a section that's ADA compliant on, the width of the driveway in the right of way. John, can you elaborate a bit on this one?
Yeah, I think it can be done, although it's more challenging to enforce. Chapters or Title 16 or the subdivision ordinance allows the council to waive individual requirements. I would say if there's a rational basis for it. So I suppose you could waive many of the requirements, but still enforce other requirements of our code regarding street grades, sidewalks, et cetera.
So it can be done just as part of the motion.
Yeah. What I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about is how we would enforce this. So let's say as part of the motion to approve the subdivision plat, you say a contingent that on complying with sidewalk requirements for each lot as it's developed. then how do you enforce that? I think there would be a mechanism to do it. I'd prefer to see it in the covenants, that it would be spelled out in what's recorded, that this would be part of the covenants, and say that the city of Decorah can enforce that specific covenant. We don't want to be in the business of enforcing all of the covenants, because that's kind of the developer's discretion. But and there's other rules about who can enforce covenants. I would want that one not only enforceable by the city, but make that in perpetuity. There's some other issues with the length of time of covenants, but I would want to see something in there so the public's also put on notice if they have a title review of that requirement.
I'm going to ask Tate.
Wait, I just have a
Tate.
question.
No, it's just a minute.
I just want to follow up with that question. Well, what John just said.
I'm going to hold your question, and I'm going to hear from Tate, and then we'll come back to you, Emily.
Yeah, I guess we had agreed. I know in the plat, it does say it has the provision for the sidewalks upon annexation. And we have no problems with, having all the sidewalks installed, which would meet the city code with annexation and stuff that way. So I guess if your concern is that if it came into the city, that would mean that's what we already had proposed, that those would be up to city code, the sidewalks, which would, be the driveways as well as part of that. Because it would have to meet all the ADA and everything else.
Okay, then I have two questions, either one from Kristen or one from Emily. So who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Emily.
Well, I was just
Go ahead.
wondering how, John, just in following what you said, how do we enforce any of the like stormwater management, curb and gutter, streetlights? How would we enforce those mechanisms if that's what P and Z had recommended?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, when it's in the city, I defer to Jeremy on this. There's some better mechanisms for enforcing it. I think we could still enforce it because it's in not only Iowa code that the city can do this. It's in our city subdivision ordinance. It would be, I'd have to think about what kind of action it would be. I'm sure there would be a way to do it. I'm just more with covenants. It's a little bit more clear cut if it's spelled out. And then we don't have to worry about going after the developer or who we're going after. If it's the responsibility of the property owner, then it's clear. I think if there was a stormwater management issue, like they didn't comply with the requirements of our stormwater management issue, yes, we could go after the developer there. Gets a little bit different with these sidewalks. I suppose we could still go after the developer, and then the developer goes after the individual lot owners. But who knows how long the developer will be around? So I'd want a clear-cut answer on the sidewalks, because it could be years before some of these lots are built out. And
I
we
think-
would want to,
Oh, go ahead.
I would prefer to see a clear mechanism to go after the existing lot owner, not just the developer.
What about like well and septic? I mean, they each have to have their own private well and septic currently. Is that what you're calling for?
Yes, I mean, that's the way it is. I know everybody will have to have their own septic, but the well can be shared and water rights can be shared through different lots, but every individual household will have its own septic system.
I mean, I guess I see the sidewalks and streetlights and signs and stuff like that being more easily addressed by the city should it annex it in, but something underground like septic and water is going to be more of a problem for the city if they were to annex them in there.
Now, if they were to annex in, it's my assumption that the cost of hooking up to sewer and water would be borne by the property owners, correct?
Yes. And that's the other thing. All of it is triggered upon annexation. So it can't come into the city
Right.
until it's done. So if the sidewalks aren't right, it can't.
And I would also add that involuntary annexation in Iowa is nearly impossible. So the only possible way, at least under the current circumstances, that this property would become part of the city is if it were voluntary annexed by the property owners. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I
Maybe.
think the problem. Oh, go ahead.
I'm done.
Okay. I mean, I was just thinking about the whole, as you're talking about enforcement and this and that, it does strike me at a development in this area. It really is like the city supporting the development in many different ways, whether that is all of the city services provided to it, but at no cost to the people who live there, since they don't actually pay the taxes to support the community that is actually supporting them. That's where it gets frustrating in terms of a subdivision that really just isn't up to code, that isn't easily annexed, right? Because we've seen within, 50 years of Decorah, how we annex and then we wind up with a cost associated with that because of the development not matching city code.
Can you give me an example of that?
The houses, I'm not going to know the names of the subdivision, but the ones right below Toppling and Goliath there. On the,
East Hills
Hi.
Road, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're both in the city.
On the north side of Highway 9?
Mm-mm.
I think there's college drive.
There's a few houses in there that there's like 2 or 3.
We please, let's do one at a time.
High Point East is not in the city limits, nor are a lot of the houses downhill from the Downing addition as we know it, that are in the city limits. Most of the houses on on College Drive or Old 52 heading out toward Silvercrest, most of those homes were also not in the city limits. And over time, they have mostly, I think, maybe all of them now have voluntary annexed, except for the stuff on the top of the hill, right?
It stops at
That-
Gene Sims' old house there before you go up.
Right, but most, except for the last 2 or 3 on the right, I think, are part of the city.
That does homes out there that are
Right.
Here's.
Nordheim
Okay.
Edition was also not part of the city for many, many years, and I think that it came in a long time ago where you live, correct? Was
78.
right,
They voluntarily annexed in
correct.
to get on city water and sewer because they were having.
Randy, can you turn your mic on?
It is. They voluntarily annexed in, but they also had a promise from the city that they were going to improve Locust Road and extend bike or sidewalks up there back in the 70s. So, but that whole addition up there, the original part, Helena Drive, Thomas Drive and that, and then along Locust Road. Those streets aren't up to our codes right now either, but they do have water, sewer, and they're paying taxes and we're maintaining everything up there.
And we also have another example of people who are on water and sewer in Freeport who also do not pay taxes, but they pay for their water and sewer.
Mineral Heights was not in the city limits.
Mineral Heights was not either. Okay, that I didn't know. So a lot of new additions eventually do get kind of co-opted by the city.
Yep.
And that's a good thing. Anyway, over time. And if there are expenses related to that annexation, it will be borne by the property owners.
College Drive is a great example. I'm glad that was brought up. I once went and added up the property taxes, the portion the city collects from every Decorah property on College Drive. It's something like 50,000 a year. It's just a few bucks more than that. And we as a council are now saddled with replacing that road at some point, when we can afford to do it. It's going to cost in the millions. Those houses will never even cover the cost of the roadway running in front of them, which we assumed responsibility for in that annexation. I'm saying that maybe wasn't the smartest long-term fiscal move for the city of Decorah to make. And that's, neither here nor there. It's happened. And now we're responsible for that work. I want to make sure that we're making decisions so that in 50 years, future city councils aren't looking back with regret that we set the city up for more on sustainable infrastructure, houses that don't pay the way of what connecting them to the city means. If this proposed subdivision is not part of the city, it will not work out very well fiscally for our city. It will make us fiscally weaker because you have, and this is already the case in many places, but people who live on the borders of our town using many of our town's taxpayer funded services without paying into the town tax, our town taxes. If it's annexed into the city, they'll at least be paying some of their way. But probably if you do the math on what the curb and gutter costs and the hookup to sewer. And I talked to Jeremy about what would be involved in that, what that costs. I don't think it's a fiscally smart bet for this subdivision to either be annexed, especially if we don't annex, it's a pretty fiscally poor bet for the city to make. And so I'm inclined to ensure that if they're going to build in this way on private land, that we at minimum ensure that they adhere to everything in our subdivision ordinance, which the state of Iowa allows us to enforce. I personally think if they're going to ever want to be annexed into the city or not, we should at least ensure, to the extent that we're allowed by the state of Iowa to do so, we should at least ensure that that future annexation is as smooth as possible. And the way to do that is not to say, hey, let's if you guys get annexed, we're gonna have this restrictive covenant that makes sure that you pour ADA compliant sidewalks. I think we enforce the subdivision ordinance right now and keep it simple. We can say, the subdivision ordinance is there. The state gives us the power to enforce it. We're going to do it. That's where I'm at.
I guess one of the questions I have, the particular location of this, the number of houses that it is, and the discussion that was happened both at P and Z and here was the fact that there was no desire to annex this part into the city. Also, the fact that only if it's few, you were putting houses into the area that could potentially help as far as the city is concerned. My guess is that there would be some form of tax revenue we would get from them through the county. Is that correct?
No, I don't really think so.
Okay.
I mean, unless the county sheriff enforces the law within city limits, but
Okay.
not that many, sir.
I think the one thing when I look at, when you're looking at the type of guidance that you're talking about, I understand like if it's a wide open area, it's going to be expanded out. Like let's say if it was up on the hill, but if this particular area really is not ever going to be annexed in because of its location and its size, if it's really fair that we are prohibiting that kind of a development, I understand if it was in a different area, but
Yeah,
That's
I
what
find the costs of all these improvements would be onerous to the land.
right, it goes to the owner.
Particularly when they're following the county ordinances, they're going to have acre lots, which they have to have under the county. So that means they're going to have gigantic sidewalks, lots of concrete that is, at this point in time, unnecessary. And I think, the characterization too of Old 52, obviously that's a long stretch that touches a number of houses that aren't super expensive houses, but it's also a main thoroughfare that hundreds and hundreds of users use all the time.
To be sure, it's not just for the homeowners that the road exists. I didn't mean to say that. I'm
Right,
just
but
saying, I wish the county were on the hook for it and not us or the state.
Well, I'm sure the county will be on the hook for it from the point outside the city limits, correct?
Yeah, but it's now annexed.
They aren't all in. I mean,
College Drive, correct? At a certain point north,
it stops.
stops being city obligation. If I remember right, it's been a couple weeks since I drove it last, but that line might be like
Where the road
city
goes to.
stretch is the rough stretch.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
So, but there is a potential that we would want to annex the east side of that road, correct? I mean, so when you look at building to the south, and I have heard, right, that there isn't much on the west side. Am I getting the directions right? And then it would be weird that we've annexed the east side, but not the west side of the road. And then what happens with that road in general?
I got a great example of this actually that just got a call on today. Shagbark Lane Road up in the Downing edition. The road and the utilities under it are the obligation of the city. However, the row of homes on the southwest side are all county residents. So
They don't
all of
get-
those, they don't pay city taxes and they have a city street right in front of them. Same with city utilities in there. There's another stretch up at High Point, if I remember correctly. High Point itself, I think the street is actually a city street. But the homes, maybe I'm not thinking the right one. So I know I dealt with the county residents that wanted to do things in the city right away that we would not permit. And he frankly wasn't very happy with us, but there are several instances of that where it's one-sided development where you have a city-owned street and only have city development on one side.
And that lends to some problems when developing to the south, then it sounds like, or it could lend to some problems. We'd have the city street, but only half the people on it paying taxes for it.
Depends, I mean, that's all gonna depend on how the east side would build out, if and when it
Right.
builds out. So if the access is along the north edge of that, I wouldn't propose any annexation be done any farther south on Middle Calmer Road beyond the access point to that subdivision. You know, that's where we would call it a day. And even then, the east side, you know, a subdivision like this, I've said it before and I'll say it again. This subdivision would not be one I would ever recommend the city put in the city limits because it doesn't pay for itself.
That's correct. And I think that's where I was getting back to the point that you don't have any intention to do that. If you go further south, you go west or east, you're going to be looking, you know, at each individual thing as they come up.
I guess
Yeah,
one other observation I make, this is switching track a little bit, but you know, I've ridden the Trout Run Trail through there a number of times, you know, over the years that it's been there. And that property has been agricultural and it has had cattle on it and it has had crops on it. And it's pretty steep and it's pretty, the possibilities of erosion there are, you know, pretty good because of the land. But if you take it out of production and if you put in appropriate cover crop or grass and such, those problems can go away. And I think, you know, developing land in this way on the outs or allowing the county to develop this land on the outskirts of town is not a bad thing environmentally or otherwise. And I just think that it is, even though it encroaches on the Trout Run Trail a little bit, I think it would be something of an improvement for the users and for the property in general.
Is that a motion, Kirk?
I will make the motion again, as I did last time, to approve the Platts subdivision with the P and Z's recommendations. And
Second.
Hadley will second.
Okay, right. Motion made by Johnson, seconded by Chisel, third by Hadley. Any further discussion?
Could you clarify what P and Z recommendations mean again? Maybe it's in the background, but I'd like to look at it again.
So I have listed in the background notes as well. At the top, immediately stormwater management plan must be submitted in act.
Travis, your mic's not on.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So I have the immediate contingency of a stormwater management plan be developed and enacted. And then upon annexation, curb and gutter, streetlights, street signs, and sidewalks all be installed at the time of annexation.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Johnson,
aye.
Chisel, Zittergruen,
No.
Hadley,
Aye.
Neal,
No,
Olson,
No.
Luce.
No.
Okay. Appointment of chief of police. Taylor Consulting was hired to assist with the process.
Mayor, your mic's not on.
Hey, thank you, Ross. Jeff Kaler of Kaler Consulting was hired to assist with the process. 16 applications were received. The list was narrowed down to 4 finalists During the interview process, one candidate withdrew for personal reasons. The 3 interviews took place on Saturday, June 17th at City Hall. There were 25 interviewers, which were divided into 3 groups. Civil Service Commission members were represented in each group. As mayor of Decorah, I'm putting forth Patricia Tyne to fill the position for Chief of Police of Decorah. She brings a comprehensive set of skills that will be valuable to Decorah Police Department. Her 26 years of experience included completed education from the Police Leadership School of Police Staff and Command from the Northwestern University, Evanston, Illinois. An Associate of Applied Science, Poli-Sci from Hawkeye Community College, Waterloo, Iowa, and the Police Executive Leadership and Networking Executive Leadership from the FBI National Academy, Quantico, Virginia. Her work experience started as a patrol officer. She advanced from Waukon to Marshalltown, Iowa, which has a population of over 27,000. Her comprehensive set of skills as police lieutenant reflects her abilities in training police procedures and staff leadership. She feels this is a foundation for the position. As an engaging communicator, she has a proven track record in department policy implementation. Strong written and communication skills were noted on her resume and noted throughout the interview process. Researching references reflected the following descriptive terms: proven leader, serves with honor and integrity and passion, thinks creatively and is a problem solver, loves working with the public and embraces change and leads the front. Enforcement instructor experience, mentorship qualities, extensive knowledge that has prepared her for the chief's position, victim-oriented, investigative instincts, impact on human trafficking and domestic violence and sexual assault, investigative experience, all exemplify her skills. Tricia feels the primary mission of the police department is for public safety and enforcement actions, but also as a mitigator and educator with approachable community engagement and problem solving. Thus, I am bringing Patricia Tyne to fill the position for Chief of Police.
I move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Johnson, seconded by Zittergruen. Any further discussion? Roll-
Unanimous acceptance. I'd encourage unanimous acceptance of the move.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Johnson,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Jizzle,
No.
Neal,
Hi.
Olson,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Motion carried. I'll welcome her, and her starting date would be
July 19th.
July 19th. Okay, city manager, department head reports.
I do not have anything at this time, but Jeremy, if you wanted to give an update on those 2 addresses that we ordered sidewalk repairs to.
Yeah, so we have, since the sidewalk code was updated in May, we have revised the letter, so each of those properties will be getting a new letter here shortly. It's our understanding the Washington Street property recently changed owners, so we need to track the new owner down, but I don't think anything on Washington Street has happened since the previous letters. I know that for the State Street or Water Street corner bar, they did make some temporary improvements, but still have some defects that are gonna get them a letter. So those will be going out here shortly with, again, the updated. We wanted to get the new code updates incorporated into those letters so that everything was up to speed with current federal, state, and city regulations.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy.
Carrie? Anything else from department heads?
We had a pretty skeleton crew here today.
We have one person here from the department heads. Okay. Just looking through. Kirk,
Just on a personal note, my youngest daughter got married this past weekend and we're very happy and everything went well.
good.
Otherwise,
Congrats.
nothing else. Thank you.
Where was that at?
Here in Decorah, Good Shepherd Church, and then Pinters, which is out in the county.
Okay, Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm thinking about engaging in a filibuster because my air conditioner's been broke for a week and this is the most comfortable I've been in some time. Repair guy's coming tomorrow, so
Yeah.
fingers crossed, or in 2 days. It'll be a great 2 days, I'm sure. I'm excited about tomorrow. The pulpit to pulpit race is happening here in town. If you're around Decorah, it's a great event to come to. There's, kind of a festival atmosphere. And if you aren't someone who likes to walk a mile or run 5 kilometers, I know that the city's trying a new thing in terms of not shutting down Fifth Street at the start of this race. I was contacted by the organizers of the event who were disappointed in that. And as, someone who's run it a bunch of times myself, I'm not sure if I think it was a wise decision on our part. I'm concerned about sort of public safety stuff. So, I know that there's a plan in terms of so public safety being there and helping to get some side streets monitored and stuff. But I just hope we're on our game tomorrow, and I'll be paying close attention to how that works. In the future, I wonder if, we could have a mechanism where if we deny a particular aspect of a event organizer's request, if there'd be a way to flag it and maybe give a rationale to the council, like, hey, they asked for the road to be closed. We decided not to because we thought this way would be better. I'd like that from staff going forward, because frankly, I think I'm not the only one up here, but I missed it, that we were doing this and it was, kind of not what the organizers were hoping for. I personally, think that we can close a few blocks for the sake of hundreds of runners who raise thousands of dollars for half an hour on a morning when very few people are driving. I'd like to see us revisit that in the future. It is happy 4th to everybody. Tonight was a great night that demonstrated that America is at its best when people of differing opinions come together and weigh issues carefully and then are answerable to the voters. So that's one of the great things about this country we live in. And it was good to see it in action tonight.
Luz?
I was able to attend the tour of the Spectrum Industry Building and the different nonprofits, including I think the food pantry down there, Steve, is that right? And the area on aging. It was insightful to experience the different endeavors going on there and to appreciate what they do for our community.
Yeah,
So it was very good.
Spectrum is a great organization, not just for what they do, but because they're a host to so many nonprofits, including the one I help out with. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot it, Steve.
Anything else?
Have a Wednesday meeting for SMID. And I encourage folks that would like to go to Phelps Park in the morning after the run to enjoy the Lions and Rotary hospitality of a brass band and some ice cream and popcorn, and to celebrate the 5th in I guess it's the 4th. Shouldn't be
Yes, sir.
celebrating 5th
that-
until later.
And that's the music and the ice cream and stuff is up at the park.
8:30 to 10:30
Okay.
at Phelps Park.
What time does the run start tomorrow?
Seven-
8.
Okay.
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 Last Tuesday, June 27th, we had a drinking water protection team did a public forum. Greg Brennan from the Iowa Geologic Survey made a presentation along with Becky Ortman, who's the head of the team. And it was pretty well attended. I think we had about 40 people with online people as well as those that were present. A good presentation. They will both be here on the 17th of July. I think we have a utility meeting scheduled for 5 o'clock that day. And they're going to condense their talk into about a half hour. So that'll be their talk for a half hour and about 10 minutes or so for questions and answers and stuff like that. And that'll be on the 17th at 5 o'clock. That's it.
Okay, Randy?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay. We're the chamber and the people that we're working with.
Well, there-
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize to Ross and Emily. How about if we go with Ross? You're on top. You have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to amplify that the city is starting their paving project. We're doing 12 blocks of refurbishment this year, along with curb and gutter and panel updates and things like that to improve road quality and pedestrian safety as well, with sidewalk improvements, crossing improvements, ADA compliance updates to keep us working toward our compliance plan, and 12 blocks of improved roadways that are sponsored by or paid for through taxation from local option sales tax and the electric franchise fee. So it's not property tax, it's sales tax when you shop local, and an electric use. So just make sure you support local businesses so we can continue paving and improving our roads. And a happy 4th.
Thanks. Emily?
Yeah, I just wanted to also say happy 4th to both all city staff and the rest of the community. I will be doing my annual city manager staff conversations. And so next week I'll be contacting city managers and trying to get around in the next couple of weeks just to sit down and learn more about your year and to have that conversation that I look forward to every summer. And then I also will be putting out a listening session again, as I did last summer as well for the community. So expect those things coming up in the middle of July. I'm excited to get out and talk to people. And I'm really sad to be missing the 4th in Decorah. You guys talking about the pulpit to pulpit run and all those other things. So everyone get out and enjoy them for me because I can't be there.
Okay. I had the Decorah Cultural Entertainment District got approved. If you haven't seen the announcement that they put out, you could go on and visit Decorah. Jessica and Melissa did a great job with doing that. We'll be hearing more about that. We also received the Rural Housing Readiness Assessment, and that you are sending that out, correct? Okay. I also went to the Spectrum open house and I went to the water discussion, which I found very interesting. There's nothing like a statistician to bring home the story. And then I also was involved in the discussion for Doug Road. Hey, Travis, anything else we forgot? Well, I think you were supposed to announce one thing and I was supposed to announce.
You go for it. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think I did both of them. But you had another.
Yeah,
thing.
because you were going to do the rural housing and
And that's okay. That's great. Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you. Have a nice 4th.